Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Felix here at the Heart Centre, and we're joined this morning, or this afternoon actually, for an afternoon tea with Louisa Munson from Feel Good Astrology. Welcome,
Hello.
Louisa.
I've got my coffee.
Nice one. Thank you so much for coming on. I've been working with you on and off for the past couple of years now. I think it's been a couple of
Yeah,
years,
maybe longer.
maybe a bit longer, yeah. And when it comes to astrology, I always go to you first. I always watch your videos. I always because the way that you perceive things is such a great way for a channeler to
Mhm.
kind of interpret the information from objectivity. And this is what I really love about your work, is that you just present the facts, you present the evidence, and let the rest kind of make their mind up about it. And yeah, let's start with your history in astrology, really. Let's go for it.
Well, thanks, Felix. Thanks for having me on your show. It's really nice. Yes, you're right. I mean, we have been working on and off, and you've been on my show a couple of times, haven't you?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
loads of stuff together. And yeah, and I'm a big admirer of your work. I think I saw you being interviewed by, was it Helen? Might have been our friend, is it
Yeah,
Helen?
yeah,
And then
yeah,
I
Helen.
thought, wow, I love him. I must talk to him. And so it's gone
Yeah.
from there, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, well, my channel, so I go under the name Feel Good Astrology because um, I noticed that a lot of people use astrology as a tool to kind of beat themselves up with. And in fact, when I first started learning about it, it was because I didn't feel like I was born right, or, something like that. I was always trying to work out what was wrong with me, rather than what might be right with me, or being able to just see patterns and observe them and not judge them. And
Hmm.
so I got into it that way. But I mean, I started learning about this when I was 11, and I'm turning 50 this year, so quite a long time.
Wow. Wow, that's a long journey, that is.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
And yeah, along the way, I've looked at so many charts, initially just as more as a hobby. Every time a big event happened in one of my friends' lives or my lives, I would look at their chart and look at what was going on.
Hmm.
Did some formal studies. Didn't actually finish my formal studies, I have to be honest, put my hand
Hmm.
up. But yeah, I mean, if you knew that I was a Sagittarius and Moon in Pisces, you'd know why I didn't finish it. But I think what you do and what you put your energy into becomes who you are.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I practiced, I used all my friends and family as an apprenticeship, and over the years built myself up. And then eventually kind of outed myself in increments that felt safe.
Hmm.
And cut to now, for the last decade, I've been working with real clients, and this is my profession. And I have a channel where I share as much information as I can, because I think astrology is one of these subjects that people study, but it's kind of complicated. And so you often have people talking about it in kind of scholarly terms, like, they're talking about sort of different degrees and declination. They've got all these long bits of jargon and stuff. And so I don't think it appeals to everyone. And what I seek to do is try to make it a bit more understandable, so
Hmm.
everyone can use it as a tool. Everyone can benefit from it.
Hmm.
And I'm also intuitive. And so I don't always follow the astrological rules either. So, like, astrological scholars might say, oh, this is how this is. And
Hmm.
and the moment anyone tries to tell me how to do something, I'm thinking in my head, that's what you think. Because if I tune in to the planets, like the planets speak to me, how intuitive, and like, we're both channels. And so over the years, I stopped looking at the connections between planets, which are known as aspects. And I stopped kind of rigidly looking at the meanings that I'd learned over the years through all the books, and
Hmm.
started feeling into it. So I'd see a pair of planets, and it would, I don't know, I'd get a feeling, I would see something, I'd hear words in my head, and sometimes see bits of video play out. And so now I really use the chart as a portal. And so if I'm doing a live stream and I'm not feeling it, I start to read it like somebody who's learning it and has used the books. But then all of a sudden there will be this moment where I kind of sink into it.
Hmm.
That's kind of where I am, really.
Oh, love that. Yeah, amazing. And I just love the fact that you are self-developed as well. I think this is a fundamental key in blueprint development is when you kind of find your passion and you inherently know deep within your cellular body that this is what I'm meant to do,
Yeah.
you throw the textbooks out the window and think, fuck it, I'm not going to do that. And you just find your own way there. And
Yeah.
that's what I absolutely love about your process, is that we work the same way. Of like, with my own healing stuff, is it's been self-developed, it's been experimentation,
Mm.
and using myself and some other friends as guinea pigs,
Yeah.
to grow and expand. And I think it's a really wonderful way that you can kind of connect true to your soul with that. It's really lovely. Um, so something came up within that, and it's just kind of flashed across my mind and then went out. So I'm going to see whether it will come back. Um, but there was also something else I wanted to pick your brain about as well, which
Okay.
was the 13th sign of astrology,
Oh, yeah.
Ophiuchus.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your viewpoint or position on this, or what do you kind of see with that?
Well, I don't really have that many fixed beliefs about anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're talking to an astrologer that doesn't actually believe in the existence of planets necessarily. I mean, like when I started, I thought, oh yeah, planets exist. Now I really am open. They could just be an energy vortex. They could be physical
Mm,
beings. Mostly I see the planets as stories,
mm,
have an energy around them that we can all link into. So I
mm.
don't know. But anyway, with the 13th sign then, I am open to it. And
Okay.
I love the idea that the 13th sign, each of the signs, like, I mean, one thing I like about astrology is it's a good way to tell a good story.
Mm,
And if you think of Jesus and the 12 disciples, you've got the 12 signs and then this 13th sign, which is like a master sign.
mm,
I think of it as a deeply transformative sign, that could show how we could rise
mhm,
out of our actual mortal coil. I actually think of it as an area in the chart that really shows mastery.
mm,
And my ascendant's in the sign of Scorpio and my sun's in the sign of Sagittarius. So it all kind of fits in between two of my major components. So
wow.
it really works. I mean, your sun is probably there, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
your sun is early on in the sign of Sagittarius.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
I really think, I don't dismiss it.
Mm,
And if a client wanted me to look at the birth chart from that perspective, I would.
mm,
But most of my clients are in the 12 signs of the zodiac way of
mm.
looking at things.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of it.
Because to
But
me,
I don't want to kind of throw it out, but I don't want to adopt it.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So you just take it or leave it as and when it comes in, if it's needed at the time, which
Yeah,
is,
absolutely.
yeah.
And maybe it will be needed at some point. Because like asteroids, I become aware of particular asteroids at different times, and then I use them. Like when they come into my awareness, they're nearly always in a really important part of my chart.
Oh, right.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Okay.
like planets arrive, like for
Mm,
instance, when Uranus was discovered, like if we talk about Uranus and it's about change, it's about scientific advancements, it's about all sorts of things that are taking us up a higher notch
mhm,
in terms of how we process information, and it's a real channelers planet.
mhm,
And at the same time, there was the start of using different kind of technologies. There's chemotherapeutic type things,
mm,
all sorts of things. So like planets come in and if we observe what's going on when they come in, and then we also observe what's like what's happening as these guys are arriving, like with my children,
mhm,
I was looking for the right name for our children, and there's over like 200,000, no, sorry, 20,000. I was over egging it
mhm,
then. When there's over 200, there's over 20,000 named asteroids.
mm,
And so I had a series of names, and there was always one name that felt a little bit more right for my birth, like for our child that was being born.
mhm,
And so as an extra verification, I checked in my chart, my husband's chart, where those names were.
mm.
And then the
Wow.
thing that really gave us that's the name is, well, how is that name in my chart, my husband's chart? Because if it's a good name, then our child, you know, like astrologically, that should be quite useful. Like,
Yeah.
I think planets, signs, anything of interest comes into our awareness at the right time. For instance, I was having a conversation with a client last night about superpowers. You
Right.
know, I'm sure there's loads of people that have been born with these amazing powers. And the people that I speak to the most about these powers, they often don't know, they have a sense that they've got them, and they have this knowing that at some point in their life, they're going to come online, and they can't say when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen necessarily, but they know that there's something inside that's ready to be unlocked. And I think that's a bit like the planets. So I'm aware of it. And right now, it's not part of what I need to be able to do what I do. But when it is, I know it will come in and it will really make sense.
Absolutely. No, that's really a perfect answer, actually. And when you were talking about the planets as stories as well, what kept on jumping out to me was this multidimensional way of thinking.
Yeah.
In the sense of, if you're tapping into the archetypes of the planets, you're tapping into a fifth dimensional mind, and being able to understand it and process it from these different degrees of consciousness, really, to then
Yeah.
start weaving in a story. So what would that mean for your client if you're looking at the archetypal roles within that? What are you healing within them as you're reading for them? Which I thought was just amazing, really. It really is, to see it from this different perspective. And I think also with that 13th sign, I guess that would kind of go into maybe like the solar zodiac symbol, which would be like the fifth dimensional perception of the zodiac, from where we've
Yeah.
been on a 12 base for a third dimensional consciousness, or
Yeah.
third dimensional reality. So yeah.
One thing that occurs to me is, I know you and I, I'd had a session with Simon Parkes years and years ago, and I know you've been part of collecting consciousness, and I
Yeah.
don't know if you still are or not, but
Yeah.
it was interesting when I spoke with him, must have been about 16, 17 years ago now.
Wow.
He was talking about like a 13th string of DNA, or like the activation of different DNA codes. So I
Yeah.
think like the number 13 is important in different ways.
Right.
And so I wonder if the 13th sign will become more important when the other aspects of 13 become more active. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, 100%. And I think that will also link into the security levels of the divine feminine being able to come and sit in a sense of pure security and be able to flourish. So yeah, and I think with that, when that kind of comes into balance, we've got the digressive masculine that's being in full rehabilitation mode for the past few months. It's past few years actually, but it's really dialed up a notch over the past couple of months, which is creating a safe space for that divine feminine to kind of sit and come into flourish. So I'm wondering whether that will kind of interlink with an evolution of astrology as well in our reality, which I suppose is
I'm sure it will. I mean,
quite
it's funny
complex to
'cause
think about, but
it is. I mean, like, so many people ask me, like, you know, well, how do you know that these signs exist? And the truth is, well, I don't really. I mean, if they only make sense to us on Earth from when we're looking out and we see these constellations, and we know these stories have been written about these constellations. But if we were looking out at the starry night from, say, Jupiter or from Mars, the constellations are going to look different.
Yeah, yeah.
So the stories of the zodiac only really work for people on Earth.
Yeah,
Where we're
absolutely.
viewing them from. So
Yeah.
I think the right stories come up according to where you live and how you perceive the world around you.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I suppose, with the pole shift as well, with the change of the Northern Star.
Yeah.
So that's also going to change the whole thing, because if we've got, in the Southern Hemisphere, we've got the only place you can see the crux star system, that may then turn around and come up to the top and give a whole new perspective on the Northern Hemisphere if we were to ever completely flip around.
Yeah, I
and turn it
know.
on its axis.
I mean, the funny thing is about astrologers now, very few of them are astronomers, and I include myself in that. I'm not an astronomer. I
Mm,
can go and walk by the beach and I'm like, oh, look, there's the moon.
yeah.
And I can point at some stars. But, you know, a lot of our skies now are really polluted and we can't really,
Mm,
you know, truly link into what's around us. So, you know, maybe the next form of astrology or divination will come from our relationship to things that are really in front of us that we can see,
mm, mm.
you know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Mm,
Like I mean, essentially we're reading the energy of things that we are noticing in our environment,
hmm.
you know, so
Yeah.
I wonder how divination will change.
Definitely changing, that's for sure. But I think it's also about the the body's evolution as well, because
Yeah.
the more kind of sensitive you become, you're able to kind of pick up on layers of people's systems that you is not visible to the eye.
Mm.
So, and I think this is the kind of interesting thing of astrology is, or the way that you work in and of itself, because you're not directly looking at the planets, you're downloading it automatically because you're attuned, you've got an attunement to those solar systems. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, yeah, and I get all of my detail from a set of data that comes from, well, from all of the um observatories that have recorded, you know, where the stars are. But, you know, in more recent years, I thought, well, do I trust the data that we've been given?
Right.
Like everything,
Yeah.
all of my work is premised on the data that has come via NASA and via
Mm,
other observatories.
right.
Mm.
Interesting. So then this pushes you to then become more self-reliant and
Yeah.
trusting of yourself.
I mean, I'm not going out and checking the planets are in the positions that they've been told they are, but
For the telescope.
I'm working on the already agreements that we've got,
Mm, hmm. Yeah.
and then feeling into it myself.
Right. Yeah. And I think with that as well, you're going to get much more of an accurate reading once you do always relay it back. It's the same thing, I suppose, with anyone's intuitive work. It always comes back to your own innate knowing
Yeah.
and your ability to kind of process information accurately and clearly.
Yeah.
So yeah, amazing. Amazing.
Thank
So
you.
no, it's all right. No, thank you for sharing. This you've recently done a video on the Jupiter Saturn square.
Mhm.
I'd like to go into that because
Sure.
this is really, really interesting to me. I know that I think probably one of the first astrology videos I actually watched on YouTube was your grand conjunction in 2020, to be honest.
Yeah.
When I was just getting used to YouTube, that wasn't videos of video games or kind
Yeah. Yeah.
of something a bit more meaningful. Um, yeah, let's go into that because it's highlighting a whole load of topics of this kind of push-pull dynamic and this controller masculine versus the expansive masculine. I'd like to get your full interpretation on that if you can.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I hope you don't mind me getting political. I mean, I'm not really
Absolutely.
I don't think I'm a political person, but I do observe things. And it's interesting because, you know, Jupiter and Saturn, like we've got the inner planets. So we've got, and the sun and the moon obviously aren't actually
Mhm.
planets, but we call them planets. But so we've got the inners. So the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, and they really relate to our actual personality. They are things that we can articulate within ourselves, like our energy, our mentality, our ability to love, feel, and express. And then there's the outer planets, there's Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, which I think are showing us the energies of maybe gods or energies that we can't process ourselves.
Mm.
Um, Energies that we can't really articulate, we can't really grab onto, and we have to make meaning from them. And then you've got these two planets in the middle, Jupiter and Saturn, and they're like bridging planets. And I did do a video years ago where I postulated that maybe Jupiter was seen a little bit like Jesus and Saturn a little bit like Satan. You know, like there's these two characters. One seems benevolent and kind and not very kind of structured, but more like let's go with the people. And then there's more of an energy that's trying to contain and The truth is, and I realize now, that actually you could see Jesus in both Jupiter and Saturn. You know, like Jupiter is the planet that's expansive. If you think of what we've been told about it, Jupiter is the largest planet, and it appears to be big. And then Saturn appears to trap. You know, it's a limiting planet, and it's got these rings around it. So that's why it's got that energy. You know, like there's a good side to Saturn is he could be somebody who is like a nurturing grandfather that's creating boundaries around you, that he naturally helps you until you get to that level, and then he might extend the boundaries, but he's by your side. He's a guide by your side. Or it could be the Saturn type that is kind of cruel, disassociated, judging you. So Saturn kind of, you know, is judging in some ways. He's either judging in kindness or judging, you know, out of competition. And then there's Jupiter, which is like this kind of bombastic and expansive energy. At its sort of more benign and benevolent energy, it's joyful. It just wants to share what it knows. It does want to be at the center of things. You know, Jupiter is emitting energy, or it appears to be. And so it's somebody who's big, larger than life. But then, you know, when that larger than life gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it can become a bit arrogant and a bit boastful. And of course, there are two current political candidates in America that would fall in very clearly into one of those descriptions. You've got the older, smaller, quieter man whose administration has created lots of dogma or guidelines as to how you do these things based on judgments. There's a lot of censorship that has been going on in the last 4 years as to what you can and can't say, and a lot of hiring, like changing the way that people have hired expertise based on rules, based on judgments as to what's right and wrong. You know, so there's a real sort of like morality and expectations being sort of put out. And then you've got another candidate that appears to be a kind of minor celebrity or a massive celebrity now, who is larger than life, who, you know, at his worst is accused of being like an absolute megalomaniac who has this massive personality, and people are routinely saying this person's really arrogant. And then, like the softer side, people are saying this person's fun, this person is relatable, this person understands people, you know. And the other character, you know, who is seen as possibly rule-like, and you know, when he's being spoken about by his fans, they're talking about the kindly old man, his kindness, you know, like that he's there like some kind of beautiful grandparent. I see you already have your views for each candidate.
I was about to say something that I really shouldn't have said, so I'm just
fine. It's fine. That's what I'm observing. It's like when I was talking about these two planets, I was thinking, wow, that's like the tale of two presidents.
Yeah.
You know, and Saturn.
Sorry, I just swallowed the thing off my tea. Then I was.
Don't worry. Sometimes I get a bit of you know, if I have milk in my coffee, sometimes it's stringy bit.
Yeah.
So it's like a tale of two presidents right now. Like they are absolutely showing both of those sides.
Yeah.
But you could actually see it from another perspective, because, you know, and if you don't mind, I'm going to name each of these planets. So Saturn appears, I think, to be a little bit more like Biden, and Jupiter appears a bit more like Trump.
Yeah.
But when people complain about Trump, they often, you know, are complaining because, you know, he's like sanctity of life issues. You know, they're saying, you know, he's not going, you know, he's religious, and you know, the level of the religion is going to hurt people. You know, so they're kind of complaining almost that his adherence to tradition is creating a problem. Well, in that moment, they're almost comparing him to Saturn, because Saturn is the one that's more sort of traditional and formed.
Yeah.
And, you know, Biden, you know, you know, part of his ticket is about, you know, being a party, you know, this is what they're sort of like really open about, like, oh yeah, you know, we're creating a world where it's safe to be a woman, where it's safe to be, you know, choose your own gender, and all of that sort of flexibility is a lot more like Jupiter.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. You know, I think every leader can be a Jupiter or Saturn leader. But it's interesting, like I see that humans, we become the Jupiter or Saturn, but there's always a whole level of leadership beyond that, and that's Pluto. Like, so Neptune and Uranus, like they're the leaders you don't see. And like, so the sort of human like league of great band, human league of managers, we're like the I don't know, like the CEO, not the CEOs, we're like the VPs in a business. But the CEOs are the outer planets.
Interesting take on that. Yeah, I really like that. And I also find it very interesting as well how there's got this kind of like inversion templating about what the parties actually stand for. So where you mentioned about the Biden admin would be more progressive,
yes,
yet they have to put so much control and restriction around
exactly.
it. So it's kind of like this subtle hidden control behind this kind of expansive agenda. So it's like, okay, well, what's really going on in here? Which is a bit not so good.
I completely agree. You know, I don't think you get freedom when you're being told how to behave. I don't think that creates freedom. It's like, here's the framework. If everyone would just do the framework, we'd all be free. I call BS on that, you know, because
absolutely
freedom is freedom.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%.
And freedom gives us the chance to make mistakes. And I get that a lot more with the other side, because you know, I've heard journalists like really talking, in particular I've seen bits of is it called The View?
Oh my god, yeah.
I've seen clips of that, and I always find I get really quite angry when I hear all these like massive judgments about, you know, if this party gets in, or if Trump gets in, no one will be able to, he's going to ban abortion, it's going to put everyone's life at risk, and it's a really, really drastic message. And yet when I've heard him talk, he's actually saying, I'm going to give the responsibility to the individual states to democratically decide what is right for them based on the votes of the people. And I also think there's this massive mid-ground, you know, like right now we're seeing the worst of each of them being advertised by the other, like, you know, like there's one party saying they're like this, but pointing right at the far end of their policies, and the other is doing the same on the other side. Like, we're getting the absolute worst reflections. But I actually think we should be dealing in the mid-ground. And I think most people are in the middle. Sense of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's never an easy topic to kind of discuss, is it, openly on these kind of platforms, because of just sometimes people just don't like it. They get triggered and things like that. And I think that kind of begs the question is, if you are getting triggered behind this, why, number one, why are you getting triggered? And why do you feel that if somebody's saying something that their point of view isn't correct, or why do you have to kind of nastily vocalize to hinder the opposition or hinder the polarity, to again go in on a control or warpath to change the belief systems of someone by targeting and attacking? Right. So it's I mean, it's definitely not what I had in mind for this chat, but I'm loving where it's going. I think it's brilliant. So we'll just go right for it, I think.
Well, it's interesting because when I posted that video, I've had lots of people who have thanked me for it and said, oh, that was brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And I've had some really snarky comments as well from people who've been really like, that was shallow, that was this, that was that, like real judgments, but not saying why. And all the people that are saying they like it are actually saying why they like it in particular. So what I've got is there's lots of people that are saying they really like the exploration of it because it gets them to think about both. Like, what I've really understood is there are some people that are quite open-minded who are finding the choices right now are really in their face, and they're under the pressure of almost deciding where they belong, you know, like these political times, and also, you know, like with COVID narratives and all these things are forcing us into one side or another.
Yeah.
And I think people are starting to feel the polarity of it. And so I think a lot of people who, you know, maybe identify a little bit with this side and also a little bit with this side, which is really natural.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're the ones that are absolutely thanking me because it's helped them get clearer in themselves. You know, it's just jogged something in them to help them tune into what's true for their own value systems. But the people who've been attacking, they're obviously the ones who are really invested in a way of seeing things, who absolutely aren't ready or open to hear anything.
Absolutely. Oh my God.
And I'm not actually talking against anything, but I have noticed that there is a sort of sentiment out there. I've noticed there are some people that are behaving that if you don't actually agree with me or show that you really agree with me, then you're against me.
Yeah.
And I just don't buy that. But I see that there are people that react like that.
Absolutely.
I'm just trying to put information out in a as sort of gentle and balanced way as possible so people can make their own minds up. But there's a lot of people who are invested in the idea it's my way or the highway, and who feel absolutely justified with their moral high ground. It's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah, 100%. And it's really interesting you mentioned that about the polarity force, because I think this works perfectly with the theme of healing that we're kind of in at the moment is a polarity integration. And so where you've got these people that are trolling and triggered and not giving you a reason why, stuck in a polarity which is restrictive, and then you've got the ones who are willing and looking to kind of open the mind to understand it. This is actually balancing out the scales of polarity on the other side to kind of bring things back to the 0 point field, to be able to bring things back to neutrality. And only then we can get a kind of more well-rounded perspective of truth. And I think that's so important. And I feel like with this Jupiter Saturn square, it's only going to trigger more of that kind of energy to be able to kind of balance out the control, the restriction, or the limiting thoughts. And I don't know about you, I've got loads of Saturn in my chart as well.
Yeah, I have.
I'm just thinking like, oh my God, is this going to trigger up left, right, and center? Because there's all that Saturn there, because I already find it quite challenging when I'm trying to break routine or daily habits of getting up out of bed, walk the dog, meditate for 2 hours, maybe do some client work if I've got clients in. But then if I'm not, it's writing. When really, I just want to go outside and enjoy the sun because it's summer. And we've got probably about 20 minutes left of sunshine.
Oh, we should go now and we'll record later.
In the UK. And it will probably turn to piss and rain afterwards. So
yeah, no, I understand that. Maybe you should do all your work in the winter and then just take a really long summer holiday.
Don't tempt me, please. I wouldn't mind that. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting kind of turn of events. And I think the more we're kind of challenged with the looking at the polarity, the more we're only going to be able to see the truth of the matter. So how many of these people, I'm going to say, how many of these people are actually real and genuine who are holding that trolling thing, or are they kind of set up to attack, like with the bots that go out to attack the AI, when there's specific keywords that kind of come up within there? How much of it is kind of actual triggering? And I think you can kind of feel into it, how much of it is kind of engineered within your own work process and your own knowing, really, to be able to manage it and get a handle on it. Because if we're going to be going through high polarity integration over the summer, which I'm not going to lie, I feel like we are. I feel like we're already in it after last weekend. We're then going to be facing a high turmoil for the next 4 to 8 months. So,
well, I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news or good news. It's going to ramp up.
Oh yeah,
And I know you know that already, but
Yeah.
can I share with you some of the planetary things that are adding into this?
Would love that. Yeah.
So we've got the Jupiter and Saturn square, where it appears that like the Biden and Trump fight, you know, people are going to feel really pulled between that. And the way I see it is, you know, people are going to be pulled out of their habitual ways of thinking, or possibly their habitual ways of communicating as well. And they'll get to examine it, and they'll get to examine how much freedom they want as well, you know, because I think when we do try to live within the new words of our tribe that we've kind of connected with, after a while we start to want to break free. Nobody wants to be in a tribe 24/7, do they? You know. Well, so these squares are going on for 9-10 months, but then we've also got 3 oppositions between Mars and Pluto.
Great.
Now, anyone that's a Scorpio is going to feel this, or if you've got Scorpio ascendant or a lot of stuff in Scorpio, this is going to be really active in you. So Mars is like the god of war, but also he is about our sense of like thriving, surviving. It's where we create our own boundaries. It's where we take action. We literally take action. And of course, Mars is a personal planet. So it's the aggression and the determination and the yang energy in ourselves, the sort of male energy that, you know, we all have access to. And it's that energy that forms, you know, gives you that moment where you know to defend. I mean, I'm a bit of a pussy, really. Like if anyone pushes towards me, I don't normally do anything. But I remember surprising myself a few times. I remember there was this crazy person stood right in my face, and I had a baby in a sling, first time mum, and he was shouting at me, and I felt so threatened. And all of a sudden, I pushed him against the wall with my hand around his neck. I said, "You leave me and my child out of this." And I don't know where that energy came from. And then I backed down, apologized.
Oh my God, she went Boudica and then Athena.
Yeah. So it comes up, you know, if we like, I mean, I did obviously feel I was in physical danger, and I thought my child was in physical danger, and he was right in between me and my child. And there's no way I could have ran from him. So I did my best, a bit like a little mouse facing up to a cat. You know, all of a sudden that mouse is like, super strong.
Yeah.
So that Mars energy is going to come out. And so even the most timid of us are likely to come forwards. But it's in opposition to Pluto, and Pluto is the hidden hand. Pluto is the planet that wants to be in charge. Pluto is the god of the underworld. So he's often called Hades. But if you think about it, everything returns to the soil. Our bodies decompose, they go down to him, like they get buried. All the mining rights in the ground, all the precious metals, all of it goes to him. All the wealth goes to him. All the houses eventually break down, go to him. So he holds the power, and he feels like he holds the power. And he's a force that we can't really fight. It's a natural part of life that we are alive and we start to die and we start to return to the soil. So I always think with Pluto, we're fighting like we need to pick our fights, and we also need to surrender to the process a little bit as well. But the Pluto energy that's coming forwards, I think the power struggle, it feels like we're fighting an invisible force that wants us to surrender. And I see that humanity is going to rise up and say no. So you got the Saturn Jupiter square going on, and then there's Mars and Pluto in opposition. Now it's also happening whilst Pluto is changing signs. So he's going, like right now he's in Aquarius. He's going back into Capricorn in September, and then he'll be back into Aquarius in November. Then he's going to be in Aquarius for the next 20 years. You know, he moves very, very, very slowly, but it's the start of a new epoch, you know.
Absolutely.
AI in particular, and the idea of smart cities, like a smart world government, which doesn't sound very smart to me, but everything going online in such a way that you cannot have any privacy doesn't sound like freedom to me. But you know, this is what I think is going to get presented. People are going to realize that this is getting stronger and stronger, and that there is this energy that is taking more and more of our attention, taking more and more of our vitality and our lives. And so all of a sudden there will be a shift. People are going to start waking up to it quite vociferously. And I think it could get really jippy. So I certainly am not going to be going to anywhere that feels like a massive place of civil unrest. I certainly don't want to campaign. I'm certainly not going to go anywhere near government offices, capital cities, near airports. I'm not saying you shouldn't go, but I'm saying I would prefer to be miles away from all of this, observing from the side. Witness. I feel like I need to be witnessing, because I can feel the energy of what's going on anyway, like you can. I don't need to go there necessarily. And there will be people who need to go and fight and want to fight that do that. There are many ways to participate. So I do see something civil going on, and then there's something else that's happening as well, which is quite big. Another 3 things I need to mention.
Go for it.
So
the goods.
the North Node and the South Node, the nodes of the moon are showing our karmic direction. So the South Node is showing where we're coming from. The North Node is showing what we need to focus on. And the nodes appear to go backwards. So right now, the North Node is going through Aries and the South Node is in Libra. So at some level, sort of in recent history, we've been learning more and more about cooperation, diplomacy, democracy, and being fair. And one of the things that we've really learnt about is fairness almost to a fault, where we haven't actually attended to our own needs. And so right now, karmically, we are going back to our own needs and our own survival and considering ourselves. We're putting ourselves back into consideration. We're saying, hang on, you can't treat us all like numbers. We are all people and we all deserve to be here because we are here, you know. But as the North Node gets closer and closer and closer to 0 point in the degree of Aries, it's the first sign, it's the first degree of the zodiac, 0 Aries, and then it will cross into Pisces, 29 degrees Pisces. It's like when it goes into Pisces, it's really talking to our unconscious mind and an opening of our unconsciousness. It's almost like as we start to consider ourselves and our own needs and our own ego, we actually start to awaken ourselves. Because you can't do it while you're thinking about everyone else. No. I think that's it's an inside job. So you have to get inside. And then once you get inside, then you can almost connect with everyone else. And that's where we're going. And that's changing around January, February time. And then at the same time, we've got Neptune, another one of these outer planets. Neptune is very, very slow moving. So Pluto is changing into Aquarius for real in November. And right now we've got Neptune at 29 degrees in the sign of Pisces. So Neptune is at the tail end of the zodiac and is about to cross over into a brand new cycle of the zodiac, 0 degrees Aries. So you got Neptune changing signs and the North Node changing signs, both of them going opposite, both of them coming together at 0 degrees Aries, 20 degrees Pisces. So there is a really strong message that we are leaving one form of life and going to another.
Amazing.
Life as we know it is changing. And Neptune is about everything that is psychic, everything that is unseen, the unseen veils. There are veils between veils and all sorts of different realities. It's a multi-dimensional thing. I don't think everyone's going to go multi-dimensional, but I think the people who can do that will get more and more multi-dimensional. I think people will lose the sense of who they are. Our identity is changing massively.
Yeah, I definitely feel that at the moment with this whole, and everything that you've just said actually is so perfectly aligned to what I've been kind of picking up with this masculine blueprint update at the moment. This huge masculine blueprint update, which is changing the way we kind of operate and tolerate So as that's kind of taking effect, the safety and security you build and cultivate within yourself as you stand up for yourself and step out of your comfort zone to say, hold on a minute, no fucking way, this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
And you stand up for your boundary. This
Mm.
creates the safety for that opening of vision, the opening of security in the system. And this opens the third eye, it opens up the multidimensional awareness so much more, because you've let go of all of these deep traumas in which we've felt so unbelievably unsafe.
Yeah.
And this has actually happened on a cosmic level. So it's going through each of the dimensional scales. It's targeting the dark matter template, which is where all of the kind of building blocks of creation of the light body kind of sit on top of the dark matter in order for it to function. So if there's a defect within the dark matter, it's then evolved to change the light matter, I suppose, into something much more strong, coherent, and the way it should be. So yeah, my God, I am looking forward to that conjunction. I'm not going to lie. It's going to be quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's big. I mean, you know, like civil wars have erupted around these times. So again,
Okay.
there's other mentions of civil wars, because when people lose the sense of who they are, they try and find out what is worth fighting for. You know, like
Okay.
when they forget who they are, they might start to kind of fight. But I think
Yeah.
a lot of people could have a completely different shift.
Yeah. I think so.
I was
Yeah.
speaking to some lovely, delightful teen, you know, who is
Mhm.
obviously in the what generation? Generation Z.
Right.
She's an old Z before the alphas come in. And she was saying, because I was just talking to her about like how do you guys see what's going on right now?
Mhm.
And she was like, good luck getting us to go to war. None of us are going to go to war. We don't want war. There's no way we're going to do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, unless people have been building cyborg armies, which is quite possible, and they're ready to like fight people with drones, and you know, one thing that occurred to me is that maybe all these computer games and stuff, like where they're playing attacking different people with drones, you know, maybe like there'll be some awful kind of twist where some nasty megalomaniac releases this new film, like this new like IT game, you know, like a game. And then all these games around the world are playing it, not realizing that then when they're going into battle, they're actually really killing people. I think that's the only way they could get it done. And I'm not suggesting that they do that. I'm sure they're already aware of that potential.
Yeah. Let's not
But
feed the system.
yeah.
Just in case. Yeah. No. I
Exactly.
totally get it. I mean, the way that they condition and program these days is really, it's going above and beyond to what it ever was before. Before it used to be quite subtle, but now it's very much in your face. And
Yeah.
there's no filter with it as well, is what I've noticed. I mean, even when Julian Assange got released from prison,
Yeah.
HRC, the witch with the blonde hair from
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
US, said, oh, can't we send a drone to get him or something like that? I was like, what the fuck? Who the hell says that? If you're not implicitly evil,
Yeah.
why would that even cross anyone's mind? This
Exactly.
makes no sense.
Yeah,
Um,
there are lots of people who appear to be dehumanizing, and
mm,
I think the media has had a lot to play in that, haven't they? They've
oh
had a
yeah,
massive part, you
yeah.
know, seeding a whole new way of talking about people.
Mm,
As it's so funny actually that right now there's a lot of people saying, "Oh yeah, Trump is like Hitler." I've really not really heard that many examples, but then when I hear people, you know,
mm.
saying, "Oh, sorry, hello, fly."
Like
Um,
back with a vengeance, is it resurrected from the
yeah.
dead?
You must have got free from this. um, like when I hear people say, yeah, if only they were 1 inch closer or don't miss next time, I just think, yikes.
Yeah, there's a whole load of hate in you.
Yeah. And that's been programmed into people, or
Mm.
I don't know if I believe that people are like that. I don't
I,
know.
I
I still
think
haven't got that far.
some degrees, I think, no, there are elements of it within it due to their trauma.
Mm,
And then the major part of it would be the conditioning and the programming, because usually people only have time to read the headline
yeah.
rather than the whole story. And
Yeah.
even the whole story is usually filled with shite.
Absolutely.
So, depending on where you're kind of looking as a newspaper article or what kind of journalism is going. I mean, you compare some of the journalistic skills from, I'll take some, for example, we've got CNN in America, which is far left, and then the Sky News in Australia, which is far right. They both operate on a high polarity scale, but they put their own emotion within
They
it
really
as
do.
well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's that emotion that transits into the viewer who is in a state of hypnosis whilst absorbing the information in, to then create a kind of false emotional. I can literally just see a dragon in the sky clouds at the moment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, sorry about that. Got sidetracked by the
Don't
dragons.
apologize for seeing dragons.
Yeah, they get absorbed by the emotion that these presenters are putting off, and that is now where they're kind of really ramping up the programs. It's propaganda in full force, whereas you look at some other news stations, Middle Eastern news, I think, I don't tend to read a lot of newspapers or watch a lot of news, but when I have, I always revert back to the Middle East because they're the ones that seem to present information more accurately and truthfully,
Yeah.
to actually get a storyline that's not fucking drama.
Yeah.
Just thinking,
Yes.
like, what the hell is this? If I want to like get some drama here, I'll go and watch EastEnders, and then I can live peacefully and happily. But with this, it's like it's intentionally toying with the emotions to create a narrative in someone's mind. It's mind control.
And to dehumanize the
Yeah,
other.
yeah, absolutely. So, because people don't fully clock on necessarily, or they just read the headlines, or you know, the even with the newspapers as well, you can feel the energy of the person who's written it, or you can feel the energy of the article as to how it's kind of swaying you as well, which is really interesting.
I do like to listen to a little bit from both sides, but like you've got one end, The View and CNN, and you've got Sky News Australia. Like, well, what exists in between?
Exactly. And I think that's where the YouTubers come into play with it, or the kind of boots on the ground independent journalists is where you're actually getting the good stuff from, the real stuff, because it's not funded by someone who wants you to believe a certain thing. It's the Nancy Drews of the world are where you're going to get the good stuff. And I find it even with like some of the truther celebrities as well, that obviously everybody's kind of trying to do something to raise awareness, or on the mainstream media side, it's to control the awareness. There is an element of kind of clickbait within it as well, like a clickbaity thing to kind of get the views. And I think when all of this is kind of going off, how are we meant to kind of function, or how are people meant to kind of navigate this to find their own truth? And I think it basically bubbles back to how you work with your planets, throwing the textbook out the window and just intuiting it, working through that way to kind of navigate and discern the truth. What is real to me? What's real to my reality? And what is real to my core beliefs? And then only then you can kind of step forward and start to assess your reality and make the choices that are right for that, I suppose. Yeah. Feels good.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Like one of the things that's occurred to me is if I start to feel that something, I don't know, I'm really asking myself a lot, what am I feeling right now? What am I feeling right now? The moment something feels a bit off, I'm just really becoming more aware of it and thinking, okay, something's not quite right. It's that in the background, turn it off, unsubscribe, don't go back there. And it's completely okay to do that.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's very useful to realize that we do have that ability to unsubscribe or press the off button. Which before would be like, oh, I'll just leave it on to sleep with, or next thing you know, you've listened to the whole bloody Book of Lies by Aleister Crowley by accident. So it's imprinted in the subtle subconscious without
Yes.
becoming aware of it, and you're like, oh my God, what have I done?
Yeah.
So
Yes, I really love that. Do you know the other thing I've observed, because like I'm an expat living in Portugal, and my husband does a lot with expats, and you know, right now both of us do a lot of work with Americans, and you know, they're the people you can really see that are being pulled through the ringer with this a lot. And so Carl, he organizes these meetups. So like when people, if they're in the area, he creates a time when people can come and meet and say hello and talk about their experiences and stuff. And when you think about people that have the courage to leave their home to start a new life, they're usually people that have very, very strong belief systems. And most of them are, like most people that are leaving, they're not moving towards something like sunshine and pastel donatas and cheap coffee and stuff. They're usually moving away from something. So they're leaving something behind, and that's their usual motivation. And then they also focus on the things they're moving towards, which is sunshine and fresh air and stuff. And so at these meetups, I'm always really, really aware of the things that come up. You know, people regularly say, oh yeah, so relieved. I just needed to get away. I didn't feel very safe. I've been in conversations where people, they haven't outwardly said who they are or who they support. But I've seen conversations on many occasions where everyone's in agreement, but they don't realize they're agreeing about the same thing. So here's how it goes. Like, in fact, I fell into one of these myself. So, this lovely couple, they said they were leaving Florida, and I thought, oh, okay, so they're probably slightly more conservative. But anyway, you know, I tried to take that out because, you know, obviously you don't want to prejudge. But they were saying, yeah, we left because we were worried for our children. We were really worried about education, and we were worried about the controls in education where our kids safe. And there was another family who said, yeah, we've had the same thoughts. You know, our grandchildren are going through education at the moment. We left America. We're encouraging our kids to come out with grandkids. And so they're all nodding and saying, yes, our schools aren't safe. And then one of them said, because of gun control. And the others were like, no, because of grooming.
Yeah.
So when you look at these conversations, underneath, their motivations were the same. They wanted to keep their family safe. They were worried about their children being hurt and their kids being pawns in a war that grown-ups are doing. But one side was thinking that gun control was the big risk, and the other was thinking that their kids are going to get groomed or put on like hormones or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there are loads and loads of these examples where they're all agreeing that there's something wrong with the finances, and then when they get to the crux, they're both looking at it from completely different perspectives. So all I try and see when I'm around people is just see their intention underneath it, like what is making them feel like this. And what I think is most people aren't feeling safe. They want to create safety. They're feeling afraid. And I think that's what's behind it all. So I try and treat everyone. I just try and think, you're afraid, you feel alone, you don't know what your next step is. Man, how can I help you feel more secure?
Yeah.
How can I help you connect into finding your own security? But it's the stories that always pull us apart.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really great because obviously being an expat over there, you've really managed to find a community that's able to support. It's not just like a kind of you go there and have a holiday kind of thing, because it's you find your tribe, you find your gathering, and then you're able to kind of offer that support system over there as well, which is it's important when you've been an expat or you are an expat. It's
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I guess we were offering more support when we were out there initially because we were still finding our feet. Now that things are getting political, like people are bringing their politics with, like they leave the problem behind, but they're bringing it with them. We're actually taking a massive step away now because we just think we don't want to be part of that vibration. We just want to help people feel good in themselves and to enjoy life. Right now, people, they're preoccupied.
Yeah.
Difficult.
And I think it just bubbles down to that whole squeezing point, really, isn't it? As we kind of dial up and dial up and dial up, we're going to be squeezed and squeezed and squeezed more and more.
Yeah.
In order for us to release, to find inner strength and inner will, and to develop that noble masculine, secure masculine, to hold the boundary for yourself. But sometimes people can't always see that.
Yeah.
And I think, how much of it can you deliver until your own cup is running out of the surplus? And I think it's okay to kind of identify that. I know that more recently I've really taken a step back from a lot of things. Or not, I suppose I have over the past 5 years, 5-6 years. I've stepped back from a lot of things.
Yeah, exactly.
But now what I'm finding as well is, after the cup has been filled up, it's time to get back into the social circles and things like that, which I'm like, oh. But that being said, being the creators of your own reality, you're the one that kind of creates the community that you want. So
yeah.
Yeah,
I really recognize what you're saying there. And you were talking about the divine masculine, like energy changing. I really feel that a lot of people don't feel capable enough to create change in their life or to protect themselves. And so that's why people have been calling out for people to create rules to make them feel safer. People have lost the ability to feel empowered. They've given away their empowerment. And so I think one of the reasons why we are being squeezed right now is so that we realize what is worth fighting for or standing up for. Because when all is lost or appears to be lost, that's when we get to the crux of who we are, what it is to be. And I think then we'll realize who we are.
Perfect. Oh my God,
but I want to step out of that while that's happening.
I'll just take a step back and allow you guys to figure it out, Oh, no, that's perfect.
I know we'll all get called in when the time's right, but I don't feel like I need to be part of a lot of this. Carl read something the other day. That's my husband. So he was reading something the other day about social kettling. I'd never heard of that before.
No.
I know that police forces use kettling, don't they, to kind of gather people and then through a spout at some high speed where they can't do anything about it. Well, we've all been social kettled too. In social media, we've all been kettled into these like tight spaces where all of a sudden we act out, we thrust, and then we trap ourselves, we make ourselves really vulnerable. So there's a lot of kettling going on, I think.
I completely agree.
Anytime I feel pressure, I just think, okay, how can I feel free right now? How can I feel like I have choice? And then I just take the next step I need to take to feel freer. And it might be just to go and get a coffee, might just be to go for a walk.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we kind of also do that to ourselves as well, within our own minds and stuff. So it's interesting, the reflection that you're kind of just pitching there, to how our own mental fields operate and emotional bodies operate, because they do kind of contract and squeeze you into limiting your ability to kind of function, when you're brushing up against an area of growth. You really do kind of feel restricted. And I think, again, this bubbles back down to this evolution of the masculine. Where's your sovereignty within your own energy field? And how much of the energy are you going to allow to dictate what you do? How much of it are you going to kind of feel, oh my God, I feel like I've got to do this, so I must do it? Whereas, is that a contract? Is it a kind of trajectory that you're kind of aligned yourself with, which isn't actually aligned for your highest good? And just kind of identifying where these kind of things sit for you is a real great way. But well,
oh my goodness, yes.
This has been an amazing chat, Louisa. I always have such fun when I talk with you. So I'd love to have you back on again soon.
Yeah, just tell me when.
Yay, nice one. Okay, so how can we find you?
I would say the best way is just to find me on YouTube. And if you like the sound of me, then just click subscribe as well. But all of my details are in the... Do you know what? YouTube is almost like my website now. I don't do anything on my website. It's there, Feel Good Astrology, but all you find is links on how to get in touch with me. You might as well do that on YouTube, because everyone's got YouTube open pretty much.
Perfect.
But yeah, all my links are there if you want to chat with me or email me or whatever, just get in touch.
Yeah, brilliant. I'll put it all down below, guys. So yeah, do you have any last words for the public before we go full throttle?
Oh
Saturn
God.
versus Saturn versus Jupiter.
Well, yeah, you said something about like we're growing and they're outside forces and yeah, so Jupiter is kind of forcing us out and Saturn is kind of bearing down on us. And what jumped in my mind was the egg and the eggshell. And I didn't know this until someone said it to me, and I'm sure you know this already. If you're an egg, like a lovely little chicken egg, I love eggs. One day I want to have chickens again. So lovely little egg. An outside force on that shell crushes it. The life that's inside it pretty much dies unless it's ready to come out. Like, if you crush the egg just as the chicken is about to hatch out, that chicken might survive. But if you get an outside force crushing your eggshell and you're not ready to make that step, it's going to crush you and game over. Whereas every egg or every being like kind of grows in their egg until they naturally have to crack their shell open to get out, because you get too big for your environment and you have to keep growing, you have to keep getting bigger. And of course, if you don't allow yourself to crack through your shell, which is really quite painful sometimes, you start to suffer. You can't stop growing, like we can't stop aging unless we can, and I don't know about it yet, but we can't stop these things. Like, it's inevitable. We are going to keep evolving, and the moment we stop evolving, it's a form of death, because you can't stop growth is just what happens. Even when you're getting small and withered in your body, you're still growing in wisdom, hopefully. So we are meant to crack out of our shells. And if we're not cracking out of our shells, then something's going to come in from the other side. And if our shell gets cracked for us, it's really hard to survive. But when we're cracking our own shells, it's much easier. And so I just think, even if you don't take action, it will happen anyway at some point. And so maybe me stepping out is just me gathering my strength, gathering my resources, gathering my wisdom until I'm ready to crack out of this shell and into the next part of whatever it is I'm going to be doing. I'm sure it will, all of a sudden I'm going to go, oh, no, I'm ready to get back in the fray. Count me in. But right now, I don't feel, I think we need to follow our intuition. And like you say, if I don't feel like I know how to participate right now beyond sharing in videos and sharing with my client work, then I think we should just stay put. We shouldn't do something we're not ready to do.
Exactly. Absolutely. I absolutely love that. And it runs so perfectly with the summer solstice trajectory. From our summer solstice, we've gone through this period of kind of hermitization in order to kind of assess the growth that we've kind of gone through. And again, for me, it's always bubbled back down to this masculine blueprint development in order to kind of update all the old beliefs within it and kind of just see where you fit from that hermitization, from you becoming the hermit for a while. It's about kind of gathering your resources, doing self-study, and then coming back out. I feel like it's going to be post Lionsgate, maybe through to equinox territory, where this evolution of self comes through full circle. So it's a real deep rebalancing on so many levels in order to kind of find out who you are again. So yeah,
I feel that.
Yeah, nice.
I also think the more we all start feeling it, the quicker things are going to speed up. And I think what happened at the weekend, with the assassination attempt, that has just turned the volume up. It's just turned the heat up, hasn't it? And there will be something else. I mean, it started really with the debate. All of a sudden, that turned the heat up for a lot of people. Looking at Biden, and then the heat got turned up again, and it's going to get ratcheted up. And every time that happens, I think people are awakening, because if they weren't, this wouldn't be happening. It's all coming to pass.
Absolutely. And it's one of those cases where all you can do is kind of sit back and allow it to flow and allow yourself not to get dragged along by the tail end of it. but
yeah.
kind of be within it and know that you are safe in the process. So yeah, lovely.
Well, who knows where we'll be next time.
Absolutely. Well, we'll definitely tune in, whether it is scrambled on a beach somewhere or in one of those smart cities, God forbid. Hopefully not.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
I will run screaming from it. I think I'm like Mad Max.
I think there will be a kind of mass exodus of cities if that does get put into place anyway. So yeah, there'll be people that will stay for it because they are within that kind of Belial group timeline. And then there'll be others that are kind of aware of it and realizing that this shiny shit is just no fun. So yeah. So
be like Mad Max. I'll see you on that side with
exactly,
the slightly steampunk kind of crime look.
Yeah, maybe we can
our hair and stuff.
Yeah, maybe we can hit up Elon Musk for one of those big cyber truck things as well.
Sounds like fun.
It could be cool. Anyway, love. Right, this has been amazing. I've absolutely loved this, and I will look forward to having you back very soon.
Yeah, and I'm going to start recording shows soon, and I would like you to grace me with your presence too.
Oh, that will be done. Absolutely. It's always so much fun talking with you. So yeah, definitely. I'd love that.
Thank you.
Thank you too. All right then, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely day, whatever time of the day it is that you're watching this, and enjoy your tea. Bye.
Bye.